Leandros, driven by his insatiable hunger for ancient artifacts, found himself standing before the crumbling facade of Castle Blackwood. Don't forget to like and subscribe our YouTube channel for help. The castle, perched precariously on the edge of a windswept cliff, was shrouded in an eerie silence, broken only by the mournful cry of gulls circling overhead. Locals spoke of the castle in hushed tones, their voices laced with fear and superstition. They claimed it was cursed, haunted by restless spirits. Leandros, ever the skeptic, scoffed at such tales. He saw not a haunted ruin, but a treasure trove waiting to be unearthed. The iron gates, rusted and groaning, yielded reluctantly to his touch. As he stepped into the overgrown courtyard, a palpable chill settled over him, as though the very air held its breath, wary of his intrusion. The castle loomed above him, its shattered windows like vacant eyes, watching his every move. Undeterred, Leandros ventured deeper into the heart of the castle, his footsteps echoing through the oppressive silence. He finally found himself in a dusty old library. Books, their leather covers brittle with age, lined the shelves, their titles promising forgotten knowledge and arcane secrets. It was here, amidst the musty scent of decaying paper and leather, that Leandros stumbled upon it, a small obsidian stone resting on a pedestal in the centre of the room. It pulsed with a faint inner light beckoning him closer. The stone was cold to the touch, its surface strangely smooth like polished glass. As Leandros picked it up, he felt a jolt, a strange energy coursing through him. It wasn't painful, not yet. It felt exhilarating. It was a feeling of power, of possessing something unique and ancient. He slipped the stone into his pocket, its weight oddly comforting against his chest. That night, Leandros slept fitfully. His dreams were vivid, filled with whispering voices and fleeting shadows. He saw a procession of figures, their faces obscured by darkness, their eyes burning with a cold, malevolent light. They reached out to him, their skeletal fingers grasping, their voices a chilling chorus in his ears. He woke with a start, his heart pounding against his ribs, a thin sheen of sweat coating his skin. The next morning, he dismissed the nightmare as a trick of his imagination, yet a seed of doubt had been planted. He found himself constantly touching the stone in his pocket, seeking its strange reassurance. As days turned into weeks, Leandros started noticing changes within himself. His energy seemed boundless, his senses sharper. He felt invigorated, alive in a way he hadn't felt in years. But there was a darkness too, a growing coldness that he couldn't quite place. His reflection in the mirror seemed different. His eyes, once warm and lively, now held a disturbing intensity, a glint of something predatory. His nights were the worst. The whispers in his dreams grew louder, more insistent. The shadows took on grotesque shapes, twisting and writhing in his subconscious. They spoke of ancient pacts, of souls devoured, of a hunger that could never be satiated. He woke each morning feeling drained, as though something was slowly leaching away his life force. He tried to ignore the changes, to convince himself it was all in his mind. But deep down, a terrifying truth was beginning to dawn. Leandros sought answers in his vast collection of ancient texts, scouring through crumbling scrolls and dusty tomes. He searched for any mention of the obsidian stone, any clue to its origin or its power. Finally, in a forgotten volume tucked away in the darkest corner of his library, he found it. The pages were filled with chilling illustrations and cryptic texts that spoke of a cursed artifact, a stone forged in the heart of a dying star, imbued with the power to consume souls. The Soul Stone, it was called, a conduit between the mortal realm and the abyss. The legend spoke of a powerful sorcerer who had discovered the stone and used its power to cheat death, absorbing the souls of the innocent to fuel his own immortality. The sorcerer's reign of terror had lasted for decades, leaving a trail of withered bodies and shattered minds in his wake. But his power came at a terrible price. With each soul he consumed, he became more detached from his own humanity, his spirit warping into something monstrous, consumed by an insatiable hunger. In the end, the sorcerer's own apprentice, horrified by his master's atrocities, rose up against him. In a final desperate act, he tricked the sorcerer into absorbing his own reflection in a silver mirror. The sorcerer, trapped within his own corrupted soul, was dragged into the abyss, the stone disappearing along with him. It was said that the stone resurfaced throughout history, appearing at random, drawn to those with a thirst for power, for knowledge, for immortality. It promised to fulfill their deepest desires, but at a terrible cost, their very soul. As Leandros read the ancient text, a cold dread settled over him. The legend was no mere fable. It was a chilling reflection of his own spiralling descent. The stone, nestled in his pocket, suddenly felt unbearably heavy. The whispers in his head intensified, a chorus of tormented souls pleading for release. The stone wasn't empowering him. It was consuming him piece by piece. The sorcerer's reign of terror had lasted for decades, leaving a trail of withered bodies and shattered minds in his wake. But his power came at a terrible price. With each soul he consumed, he became more detached from his own humanity, his spirit warping into something monstrous, consumed by an insatiable hunger. In the end, the sorcerer's own apprentice, horrified by his master's atrocities, rose up against him. In a final desperate act, he tricked the sorcerer into absorbing his own reflection in a silver mirror. The sorcerer, trapped within his own corrupted soul, was dragged into the abyss, the stone disappearing along with him. It was said that the stone resurfaced throughout history, appearing at random, drawn to those with a thirst for power, for knowledge, for immortality. It promised to fulfill their deepest desires, but at a terrible cost, their very soul. As Leandros read the ancient text, a cold dread settled over him. The legend was no mere fable. It was a chilling reflection of his own spiraling descent. The stone, nestled in his pocket, suddenly felt unbearably heavy. The whispers in his head intensified, a chorus of tormented souls pleading for release. The stone wasn't empowering him, it was consuming him piece by piece. Desperation clawed at Leandros. He tried everything to rid himself of the cursed stone. He tried to throw it into the river, but an invisible force held him back. He tried to destroy it, smashing it with a hammer, but the stone remained intact, its obsidian surface mocking his futile attempts. The stone, he realized, was bound to him, a dark pact sealed with his very life force. As the days bled into weeks, Leandros became a recluse, shunning all contact from the outside world. He was trapped in his own personal nightmare, his mind a battleground between his fading humanity and the insatiable hunger that gnawed at his soul. The stone whispered to him, promising relief, offering power. It tempted him with the prospect of immortality, of transcending his mortal shell. For a while he fought it. He clung to the remnants of his former self, to the memories of who he once was. But the hunger was relentless, an all-consuming force that chipped away at his resolve. He knew he couldn't win. He was losing himself, his soul slipping further into the abyss with each passing moment. Leandros knew he was doomed. The stone had him in its grasp and there was no escape. But a new, horrifying thought took root in his mind. What if he could pass the curse on? What if he could find someone else to shoulder the burden of the soul stone, to become its next victim? The thought sickened him, yet it also offered a glimmer of hope, a perverse way out of his own damnation. He began to formulate a plan, his mind now tainted by the stone, working with a chilling clarity. He would hold an auction, a grand event that would attract the wealthiest and most influential collectors from around the world. Among the rare artifacts and priceless treasures, he would present the Soul Stone, disguised as an ancient relic of immense power. He knew that greed and ambition would blind them to the true nature of the stone, that they would be all too eager to possess its power, unaware of the terrible price that came with it. He'd already found the perfect target, a young, ambitious collector named Marina. Marina was everything Leandros had once been: passionate, driven, and utterly consumed by the lure of the unknown. She reminded him of his former self, before the stone had poisoned his soul. The guilt gnawed at him, a flicker of humanity in the encroaching darkness, but it wasn't enough to stop him. The night of the auction arrived, and the grand hall buzzed with anticipation. Leandros, his face a mask of composure, watched from the shadows as Marina, her eyes sparkling with excitement, examined the disguised Soul Stone. He had crafted a convincing lie, a fabricated history that spoke of the stone's ability to grant its owner unparalleled success and fortune. It was a cruel trick, a deception designed to appeal to Marina's deepest desires. As the bidding war for the stone reached its peak, Leandros felt a surge of dark satisfaction. It was working. Marina, blinded by her ambition, was about to seal her own fate. Just as the auctioneer was about to bring down the gavel, a wave of dizziness washed over Leandros. He stumbled back, clutching at his chest as a searing pain shot through him. The stone, sensing its impending transfer, was resisting, its power lashing out at him. He had to get out, had to put as much distance between himself and the stone as possible before it consumed him entirely. As Marina triumphantly claimed her prize, Leandros slipped unnoticed into the night. He could feel the stone's pull weakening with every step he took, the whispers in his mind fading into a distant echo. Leandros collapsed on a park bench, gasping for breath. He looked at his hand, the one that had held the stone for so long. It was shaking, the skin pale and cold. He noticed with a strange detachment that he was wearing a ring he had never seen before. It was a simple band of silver, unadorned except for a single obsidian stone set into its surface. The stone pulsed with a faint familiar light. He had escaped the stone, but not its curse. The Soul Stone had found a new way to bind itself to him, to keep him tethered to its darkness. He was free from the insatiable hunger, from the whispers that haunted his every waking moment. But he was not free from the guilt, from the knowledge that he had condemned another soul to the same fate that had nearly consumed him. He thought about going back, about warning Marina, but what could he say? Would she even believe him? And what good would it do? The stone had her now, its tendrils wrapped tightly around her soul. He was powerless to stop it. Marina, clutching the stone, felt a surge of exhilaration. This was it, the key to unlocking her destiny. She could feel its power coursing through her veins, filling her with a sense of limitless potential. She dismissed the strange sense of unease that washed over her as she left the auction house, attributing it to the excitement of the night. She had no idea of the darkness that awaited her, of the nightmare that was about to unfold. The legend of the Soul Stone was destined to repeat itself, its cycle of consumption and despair continuing unabated. For the stone always found a worthy soul. Leandros watched her go, a shadow disappearing into the night. He knew then that he was bound to the stone forever, not as its victim, but as its herald, a living testament to its insidious power. His life, he realized, was forfeit, a small price to pay for the knowledge he now possessed. He would dedicate his remaining days to ensuring that the cycle ended with him. He would find a way to destroy the stone, to break its hold on the mortal realm. He owed that much to Marina, to himself, and to all the souls the stone had consumed. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of blood, orange and violet, Leandros set out on his new path. The journey would be long, fraught with danger and uncertainty. But he wouldn't rest until the Soul Stone was no more than dust and legend. His soul might be forever tainted, but he would fight to ensure that no one else would share his fate. The cycle would end. He would make sure of it. Don't forget to like and subscribe our YouTube channel for help.